Hello and welcome to one of ACPS's Blueprint Stakeholders meetings. With us we have Mrs. Enright, Supervisor of Elementary. She'll be reviewing Pillar 1, Early Childhood Education. Mr. Wilson, Director of Human Resources, will be reviewing Pillar 2, High Quality and Diverse Teachers. Dr. Main, Supervisor of Special Education, will be reviewing Pillar 3, CCR, College and Career Readiness. Mrs. Matheny, Director of Special Education, will be reviewing Pillar 4, Resources to Ensure All Students Are Successful. And Mr. McKenzie, our Chief Finance Officer, will be reviewing Pillar 5, Accountability. Dr. Main is our Blueprint Coordinator, and she will begin with a short overview of the Blueprint. Dr. Main.
Good evening. Welcome to Allegheny County Public Schools Blueprint for Maryland's Future Community Engagement Forum at Allegheny High School. We'll start with a brief overview of the history of the legislation. In 2020, a landmark piece of legislation, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Act, House Bill 1300, was passed by the Maryland legislature and included the recommendations of the Kirwan Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education, a 4-year study. The blueprint was designed for 2 reasons. First, to update the current education funding formulas, and secondly, to enable Maryland's pre-K through 12 education system to perform at or above the level of the best systems in the world. In 2021, House Bill 1372 was passed to complement and update House Bill 1300, which was vetoed, with revisions that addressed the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on school systems and make revisions to the timeline for implementation of the law. Both House bills must be considered to fully understand the implementation areas of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future law. The Blueprint outlines a plan to be implemented over the next 10 years through 2032. Our current Blueprint plan, which we are working on, addresses our efforts from 2021 through 2024, or a 3-year span. In March of 2024, each local educational agency will submit a plan that addresses forward-thinking ideas for each pillar for the years 2024 through 2027. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future addresses 4 major policy areas directly related to systemic operations of schools. Additionally, the legislation's 5th policy area, Governance and Accountability, provides the Accountability and Implementation Board, or the AIB, to provide oversight and assure that the mandates of the law are successfully implemented and produce the desired results. The 4 policy areas of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future includes Pillar 1, Early Childhood Education, Pillar 2, High Quality and Diverse Teachers and Student Leaders, Pillar 3, College and Career Readiness Pathways, Pillar 4, More Resources to Ensure that All Students Are Successful, and once again, Pillar 5, the Governance and Accountability pillar. Mrs. Jackie Enright, Supervisor of Early Childhood, will explain Pillar number 1 and the county's efforts to address that plan.
Good evening. I'm going to review some of the key points that are included in the implementation plan for early childhood education, which is Pillar 1. One of the first things that we want to do is increase high quality and publicly funded full day pre-kindergarten programs. And through that, we're going to prioritize Tier 1 families. Those are families whose income is at the 300% federal poverty level or below. And we want to create a long-range plan for increasing school participation each year. And we look at a lot of data points to determine which schools are going to be full-day programs, such as school capacity, staffing needs, and a variety of other points. We also, in bullet point number 2, we want to implement a high-quality, mixed delivery public and private pre-K system. So we're going to be collaborating with private providers to support their programs that are funded through the Maryland Pre-K grant, which is Blueprint funded. And we want to work to create common systems for enrollment among all providers. Bullet number 3, we want to meet high-quality standards in the areas of comprehensive services, training, and professional development, and developing teacher assistants. We are collaborating with private providers to support professional development so that we are all working on the same goals for quality early childhood programs. We want to make sure that we're assisting those private programs with students who have special needs, students who are homeless, and identification and services for English language learners. We also are ensuring high-quality staff. Our pre-K teachers must be certified in the state of Maryland, and our instructional assistants must have an associate's degree or CDA credential. Further, we're going to administer the KRA to all incoming kindergarten students, as well as provide professional development to test administrators. We have an ACPS been completing the KRA with all students for several years. We're going to continue that practice and make sure that we give all necessary training, refreshers, and monitoring of KRA implementation. The other point in the Pillar 1 is to expand Judy Centers. MSDE has a goal to expand Judy Centers across the state. Each district determines the need for additional Judy Center sites and applies for funding. Currently, ACPS has Judy Centers located at South Penn Elementary School and the Westmar Early Learning Center. The last bullet includes gathering stakeholder input. We are collaborating with private providers, Head Start, and community members to make sure our implementation plan is inclusive for everyone. Our team members are listed on the slide, and we will be bringing in additional community members as needed to look at specific components within the plan.
Good evening. I'm Steve Wilson from the HR office at the Allegheny County Board of Ed, and I've been assigned Pillar 2, high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. That is basically our part of the pillar is supposed to elevate teachers and school leaders. There are 4 bullets that you see on the screen. I'll go through each one of these and explain what that particular bullet is trying to get us to create our plan to meet. The first bullet is recruiting and supporting high quality and diverse teachers to meet workforce needs. This is interesting in that one of the things that Blueprint is really striving to have LEAs get to is that our teaching staff should meet the diversity of our student population. One of the things that's going to be very difficult for us here in Allegheny County is that the diversity of our population itself is not very wide. For example, 85.6% of our students are white, and 97.9% of our teachers are white. 3.8% of our students are African American, but only 0.6% of our teachers are African American. So that presents a problem for us, and it's something that we have to work on in order to increase the diversity of all of the folks of color, so that we can try to match our student population. The other piece of this that is being tracked is the idea of male-female relationships, and this is our student population is about 50-50, but our teaching staff is about 75% female, 25% male. So we have a lot of work to do to make that up. Bullet number 2 is to increase the rigor of teacher preparation programs and licensure requirements, and the idea of growing your own staff. We'll be meeting with higher ed folks at Frostburg State and Allegheny College of Maryland to see what we can work with them in order to explain to the higher education facilities what is it the types of teachers that we need, what content areas, what levels, and then we will have to create some sort of a pipeline that will help us to get the teachers that we need based upon the vacancies that we have. We have secured what is called the Maryland Leads Grant. That is running through 2026, and that provides reimbursements for our current teaching and instructional staff to gain different certifications that they already have, whether it's something that could be a science teacher who goes to get another physics degree or another physics certification, or an instructional assistant that wants to become a teacher and to take classes, those sorts of things. So we have several of our employees who are already taking advantage of that and are getting reimbursements for classes that we need them to, that we consider to be high need areas. Bullet number 3 talks about establishing a statewide educator career ladder. This is going to be probably the most problematic piece, and it's one of the biggest pieces of Blueprint. The whole idea behind Blueprint is that it keeps the best teachers in front of kids. And it is needs to be designed to incentivize teachers to stay in the classroom. One of the things that Blueprint is the entire thing is circled around is the idea of something called National Board Certification, which is a certification that teachers can get, and it's a rigorous. I've not done it myself, but it is a rigorous task to be able to get that certification. Blueprint provides, and we're already doing this, a $10,000 bonus to salary if you become National Board Certified. So right now we had 11 at the start of the year. We have 13 teachers now, but we have 35 or so in the pipeline to become Nationally Board Certified. So the development of this career ladder that we're talking about is different than the way teachers are paid right now. At the moment, it's a step-based system where you show up every year, you get a raise based upon longevity. Career ladder is very different than that. It is something that is going to be designed that in order to get pay raises and pay bumps and work your way up the ladder, you have to do something. You have to be able to prove that you've done something, whether it's a national board certification, a master's degree in a content area. There's lots of different activities that we will have to design that will allow folks to move up the career ladder and therefore increase their pay. Bullet number 4 also talks about improving educator compensation. I've already talked about the $10,000 National Board Certification stipend. Another part of the blueprint that we've actually already met was that between 2019 and June 30th of 2024, teachers needed to be able to experience a 10% pay increase. And I'm happy to report that through the negotiations process, we've already met that this year. We are at 11.7% with a teacher increase for salary increases already. Next year, we'll be at 13.4% when we have to have it all completed. The other portion of the blueprint that is another one that's very, very different, and it's something that we've been working on for several years now, is that by 2026 in July, teachers have to have a starting salary of $60,000. Through the negotiations process, we've been kind of working towards that. Right now, our current starting teacher salary is $52,674. The current agreement that we have runs till 2026. At the end of that agreement, our teacher salary will be starting salary will be $59,114. So we come up about $886 short. That's a particular year when the agreement runs out. We'll be in the negotiations process, and we'll address that shortfall in the negotiations process, and I'm certain that we'll meet that $60,000 minimum that is required by Blueprint. Thanks. The other slide is this is our team that as it currently stands that is helping us with the high quality and diverse teachers, myself and Mr. Rice, who's also in our office, Mr. Llewellyn, Mrs. Kenny, and Mr. McKenzie. That we have folks from elementary and secondary, Mr. McKenzie because he controls the money, and then Mrs. Lockery, who is helping us with all of the professional learning that Blueprint part of Pillar 2 has to address. And then obviously we have folks from the Allegheny County Education Association, because we'll be negotiating several of these items to meet the conditions of the blueprint. Thanks.
All right, this evening I'm going to review Pillar 3, which is college and career readiness. Dr. Kim Caldwell is our chair for Pillar 3. She's unable to be with us this evening. The blueprint does establish the standard of each child being college and career ready by the end of 10th grade. The blueprint will call for curriculum alignments and changes, including math with the largest potential for change. And on the screen, you'll see a progression option that will be considered. For example, an on target to meet the CCR standard student would potentially include the following progression: Math 7, Math 8, Grade 9, Algebra 1, Grade 10, Geometry, Grade 11, Algebra 2, Statistics or College Algebra, Grade 12, Pre-Calculus, College Algebra, or Statistics. There are similar changes recommended in the area of English Language Arts for high school. The blueprint requires moving beyond standardized test scores as the only measure of CCR. Right now, that's what we use as a system. There is a potential for the use of end-of-course assessments, technical skills assessments for CTE programs, and other assessments such as the SAT or the ACT. Post-CCR pathways include advanced placement classes and programs, dual enrollment, early college, and career and technical programs, including apprenticeships. In the event that students are not CCR by the end of grade 12, the system must have support pathways. These pathways provide additional supports beyond the standard instructional experience to students in grades 11 and 12 who have not yet demonstrated readiness for college and career. Individualized supports could potentially include interventions such as in-school tutoring, after-school tutoring, and summer programs. Prior to graduation, these students will have another opportunity to demonstrate the CCR abilities and move from the support pathways. On the screen, you will see Allegheny County's Pillar 3 team. The first column are ACPS personnel, and in the second column are community members, including representatives from Allegheny College of Maryland, Western Maryland Consortium, the local advisory committee for CTE, Allegheny County government, and ACEA.
Good evening. I'm Debbie Matheny, Director of Special Ed and Student Services, and I'm the chairperson of Pillar 4, Resources to Ensure All Students Are Successful. Our purpose is to provide broad and sustained academic and health supports for schools and students most in need by offering after-school and summer academics, academic enrichment, and student access to health and social services. The first bullet you'll see, we're increasing funding for special education and English learner students. Our ELL students are a small population in our county. However, we will be working through our blueprint plan to improve engagement and communication with our multilingual families. We'll be working on strategies to ensure the level of language acquisition necessary for academic success and additional resources for our students who are English language learners. Under special education, we first received blueprint money in the spring of 20, and at that time we did hire 10 additional special education teachers and 10 additional special education instructional assistants. Our plan will address ways in which we are going to eliminate the over-identification of students for special education, effective instructional strategies and professional development for our teachers, and monitoring of discipline strategies to ensure that we are not disproportionate in our discipline of special education students. For our next bullet, fund concentration of poverty schools. We currently have 4 concentration of poverty schools in Allegheny County. They are Georges Creek Elementary, Westernport Elementary, South Penn Elementary, and John Humbert Elementary. Each of those schools have a coordinator, and that coordinator has worked with the school administration to complete a needs assessment, and from that they've developed an implementation plan based on each school's individual needs. Each of those schools has a social emotional coach to help with student social emotional concerns and needs. And a school nurse, of course, is at all of our schools, but if those 4 schools were also providing a school nurse for any extended day opportunities. The purpose of the blueprint funds for those schools is to provide wraparound services for our students and families who attend there. That looks like educational opportunities for families, extended learning time, enrichment activities for children, and also training for staff and for families. We are partnering with a variety of agencies to be able to provide those services in conjunction with our Blueprint funds. Our last bullet and our last area of concentration for this pillar is mental health. We have a focus on trauma, behavior, and social emotional supports and training at the school level. We have hired a mental health coordinator, and that's Dr. Sarah Welsh, and that's part of her responsibility. She coordinates the mental health services for our county. We also received this money through Blueprint in the spring of 20, and at that time we had one mental health specialist in our system, a social worker. We've now increased that to 11. We have 11 mental health specialists that serve 2 schools each throughout our county. Those are our school social workers. We've also hired 4 additional school counselors who are providing services in targeted schools. Through Blueprint, we also have a mental health screening for all students. That's pre-K through 12 that we're implementing. We're providing additional professional development opportunities as well with these funds and through our implementation plan. The next slide, this is our Pillar 4 team. We have Dr. Sarah Welsh, who's our mental health specialist coordinator. We have Mrs. Kathy Erick, who's Assistant Supervisor of Special Education, but also coordinates English Language Learner Services under that title. Mr. Scott Sisler and Mrs. Heather Morgan, who are Principals of Concentration of Poverty Schools. We'll be adding others to the committee based on Blueprint needs and timelines as we move forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Larry McKenzie. I'm the chair of Pillar 5, which is governance and accountability. Before we get started with that, I think it's also important to understand kind of where we came from in terms of funding and why there is this pillar. If you'll recall, there was in the mid-2000s, there was funding called Thornton funding. At that time, the legislature, one of the rubs with Thornton funding was the legislature felt that there needed to be more accountability. So as Kirwan and the Blueprint came along, they wanted to ensure there was more accountability. So in order to do this, they established an independent accountability board called the AIB, which is the Accountability and Implementation Board, which monitors and reports annually the status of all of the districts relative to the Blueprint implementation. They've provided a template for a comprehensive implementation so that the same template is used for Allegheny County that is used in Baltimore City or Calvert County. So it provides some standardization. They also evaluate the outcome of the Blueprint of all future goals as well. Not only do they provide oversight, MSDE is also a key partner in this as well. They also will be dispatching expert review teams of educators and administrators to schools in need relative to provide feedback on curriculum, instruction, as well as the structure so the students are ensured that they will be receiving an excellent education which was envisioned by the Blueprint itself. Next is the members of the Blueprint Pillar 5, which is myself, Dr. Wendy Main, Dr. Molly Stewart, Mrs. Tiffany Alcar, she's our grants accountant, as well as Jason Bennett, our county administrator.
Thank you. Blueprint is a living document, and changes will occur as we move forward. A brief summary will be presented at the February board meeting for approval, and our first phase is due March 15th, 2023. In order to take questions and input from our stakeholders here this afternoon and this evening, we will now conclude the videoing so that we can take that input and questions. So thank you. work? There's so many people here to take questions from.